Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Our Battle Will Be Legendary seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which all of our cards get replaced with all of the legendary cards from our faction. That means our starting deck doesn't matter too much, but let's hop into the deck builder to see some of the combos we want to use. So today we'll be playing a Scoia'tael Call of Harmony deck, and because in this event all of our starting cards get replaced with all of the legendary Scoia'tael cards, our starting deck doesn't really matter here. But what sets Scoia'tael apart from other factions in this event is that we have possibly the easiest scenarios to set up with both Feigned Death, which just requires elves, which is very easy to get, and then Mysteries of Loch Fian that requires Harmony cards, which we can always get at least the first chapter from with our leader ability. And at that point it gives us extra value for basically any card that we play, and if we get a second Harmony card, then of course it's even more value. So that's a nice luxury that other factions don't have in this event. A couple of other nice things that Scoia'tael has is both Call of the Forest and Isengrim's Council for tutors, or even Fov to give us one of those tutors, giving us much better control over which cards we play. Then we have cards that are just plain and simple worth a ton of points, like Denna, whether she be in her original form or after she transforms. Tellionin also great for pure pointage, and in this case, if you can play her in the same round that you play Feigned Death, you can very easily get a bunch of elves on the board, which will likely bring out Ellerin, and at that point, if you use Tellionin to put Ellerin back into your deck, you may be able to immediately summon her back out if you still have 5 elves on the board, meaning that Tellionin would have basically no downside, making her even more valuable. Zoltan Warrior also worth a ton of tempo, just bear in mind you're probably not going to have the armor on him since we're not using Mahakam Forge. Great Oak in a long round worth a ton of damage and or boosts. Likewise with Gezras. Vernasil for even more elf synergies, along with Isengrim for that same purpose. And we even have enough nature cards for Ethne to be a big factor, especially in round 3 when, because we do have Devotion, she will fully transform into that Symbiosis 3 10 base power immune version of herself. The reworked Saskia is also worth a ton of points, as can be Filavandrel in certain situations. Then we can also use Water of Broccolon, plus Querixis with our leader ability for amazing Harmony synergies. Then you have a lot of resilience with Gabor in the melee row, combined with Zoltan. So that gives us tons of powerful tools to use. The big downside with Scoia'tael though is that we do have several bricks that we need to be mindful of. So if possible, you really want to mulligan out Saskia Commander because we don't have any bronze cards for her to summon. And similarly, we don't have any bronze special cards to play with Simlas, nor do we have any traps in our starting deck for Iorveth's Gambit. And that also means Iorveth himself is only a 4-point body. Then finally, be careful with Nilfgaardian Justice, as in almost any situation this is a 0-point card. So across all those things, that makes Scoia'tael, at its best, an extremely powerful faction to use in this event, but is higher risk because there are several cards that we need to dodge. And if we can do that, then we should be very successful. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we have a few bricks in hand here that we definitely want to get rid of. Iorveth's Gambit being one of them, and then Saskia Commander potentially being another, so I think we probably dump that. Right, they'll start Theseus. Okay, fortunately, not a very big boost. Okay, and this might be a scenario round, to tell you the truth, in which case we should probably start with Feigned Death here. So let's do that. And then we should have enough elves here between Ithlin, Isengrim, and potentially could even tutor some out with Isengrim's Council as well. Stefan. Give them a little bit of damage. Their Enslave is 8, so we know they have a bunch of tactics in their starting deck, although I think that technically must mean that Stefan's deployability is based on how many tactics they have after all their cards transform. So now why don't we go Ithlin? And don't have a perfect target for our hand buff. Maybe Zoltan, so that it's less likely for him to get destroyed. Okay, they'll go Brothans, who does not count as having any of those disloyal units in their starting deck, because, as we just said with Stefan, once their cards transform, they don't have any bronze disloyal units to play. So now we can go Isengrim, or we could potentially go Isengrim's Council to get a different elf out, and then technically after getting the Waylay, that means one more elf for Isengrim to boost up, so it's slightly better in that sense, but I think we can still do this now. And then that'll give us the Waylay, and we could use that to get rid of Brothans, because he does have Assimilate, so he is technically still an engine. I'll also get out Ellerin, so decent thinning there. And they'll pass. So serious tempo from the scenario, giving us a fairly straightforward round 1 win. Okay, we draw into our defender. Figgis, that's certainly not a bad thing. Then Tellionin, I mean, would have been great in the previous round. We could have used that on Ellerin, but might still be able to get decent value out of her. Milva, not as enthusiastic about that, so maybe we dump you. And Great Oak is definitely a good pickup here, so... Okay, we are, of course, on even cards, so we could push a little bit, especially if we think we have decent tempo in a short round 3, which may be the case. So how ought we start here? We could even go super resilience. So what if we go... I think we can still afford to play Figgis in this round. Then I'm gonna go... Fauve. Into probably Call the Forest to get 1... Oh, okay, no, fair enough. Sure, you want to use your leader ability to steal our defender. Maybe that's reason enough for us to not push as aggressively here, although basically what I was about to say is we're going to get a couple of resilience units out here, and was going to try to defend them with the defender and get a little more value on the deployability from Zoltan, but that wasn't strictly necessary. Torres should give them pretty solid cards in their deck, although probably not that big of a boost, because only going to see high provision cost cards. In fact, we can actually learn what they went for. Saber-tooth Tiger, somewhat surprisingly. Synthesis, very surprisingly. And Gabor, which is the card that I was about to get out. And that's a little concerning, because if they happen to have a coup in hand, then they could get their own copy of him, which would be unfortunate. But maybe this is still worth giving a shot. So, let's go Fauve. And we'll use her to get Call the Forest. And with Call the Forest, we'll get out that Gabor. That way we're getting some carryover value. With the resilience. And we know they can't steal because they just use their leader ability. But I think they're about to coup. The fact that they just moved that. Oh, okay. Getting leader ability back, I see. Or at least... they will on their next turn, unless... Okay, this was not really the way that I planned to do this, but we could Shaping Nature. In fact, we get the echoed copy in the next round, so that's not a bad thing to do. Do that on Gabor, and then he's out of stealing range for Enslave, which is pretty tempting, because obviously that's exactly what they're planning to do, and that's why they moved Figgis. Was going to go Zoltan, but we might need to pass on him. Ah, that is kind of painful, because he got the hand buff, so we were going to get some extra value out of him, but if we don't play him in this round, he's kind of a brick. So, I think we do need to do this. And we could go Veil if we're concerned about removal with poison. I think it's probably still best to just go for a pure boost, though. So now he is out of removal range, is the big thing. So that they can use leader ability on Fauve if they really want to. More likely they're just going to save this. Oh, they're going to Yanvo. Okay, that is kind of painful. That is a little painful. That was the downside of putting all those boosts on Gabor, but didn't really have any choice, otherwise they were going to steal with Enslave. After they reset Enslave, actually, that only puts it at 3 power, so we technically could still play him, and he would still be out of stealing range unless they had a whole bunch of damage, which, I mean, tempo-wise, it doesn't match up here, but they have to keep on playing, because otherwise, we can just push for the 2-0 and win. Alright, Vilgefortz. Getting a little clever there. Not sure we can determine what they just put into the... Was it our scenario? But either way, I think we're probably passing here. We do still like a long round to build up some units, to set up Great Oak. More time for Harmony, and we did play a little bit of our nature cards, but still should have the echoed copy of Shaping Nature, plus Water of Bakhalon, and Isengrim's Council to help Ethne. So I think this is a good place for us to end the round. Obviously, we'll still get the 4 points of carryover from Zoltan. Okay, now Yorveth is a brick, so we should definitely get rid of him. And Nilfgaard Injustice is, by and large, as well. So we should probably dump you. Would have liked to have gotten the chance to get rid of Eldain, because he's not doing much for us. At least he's a 6-point body. And, well, he's not even the only elf that we have, so it's not as if going to help with harmony purposes, although we might be able to put him back into our deck with Telion in. No, he costs too many provisions anyway. Okay, a Glace. Oh, how I wish we had her previously for the hand buff. Okay, Saber-Tooth Tiger, we did see that they created a copy of that. Now we, of course, do already have one unit on the board, so Zoltan is going to be perhaps worth a little more than just a 4-point body. Technically, we'd like to begin here first with Corixus and Leader ability, because that way every subsequent card that we play, or almost every subsequent card, is going to give us those harmony procs. So we should do that now. And in fact, that also means we have some flexibility playing stuff in the other row if we're willing to sacrifice Zoltan here, but I think we will still stick with this. And this. And this will actually give us another unit. Let's see what we get. More harmony? Sure. More harmony. And not even sure we're going to have access to a beast anyway. So that is a pretty helpful way to give us harmony without taking away from anything we had here. And they're going to get rid of this. And by get rid of it, I mean put it back into our hand, which is not a terrible thing. In fact, that'll re-proc that harmony on both of them. Though I think now is probably time for Ethne, so that way any subsequent cards that we play of the nature variety will give us a little more power. Doedric, give them a little flexibility. Eventually we are going to have to play something in the range row. But we should probably go in Therian soon as well, because that's also a Harmony engine, so technically we lost 1 point of boost on him by not playing him previously. Let's do that, though. And there, as I said, that's the reboost, so not a terrible thing that they put that back into our hand. Okay, Call the Forest. That's apparently the card they stole from us, and can they do anything with that? Oh, right, now it's non-neutral, not just Scoia'tael specifically, so yeah, that's actually a fantastic tutor for them. My least favorite card in the game, by most accounts. That's unfortunately a brick, by and large, on Force Protector, because we don't have any bronze. Oh, actually, Waylay's a tactic. Yeah, probably not going to have any bronze nature cards to work with in that case. And we already had a tree ant we were going to get from Great Oak. Oh, actually, speaking of harmony, we should go Water of Broccolon here. In the range row, that's a way to get 2 cards in that row and not have to worry as much about Saber-Tooth Tiger. So we probably do that. Is there anything else that's time sensitive here? We'd like to get Telion in sometime in the relatively near future. Let's do this. It'll give us the extra Wandering Tree Ants. That is the first card that we have on the board right now that is stealable for them. Should probably use Antherian. Yes, we'll put it on one of you. And that is the card they will steal. Vilgefortz on Denna, it looks like. It's the best they can do. We'll get Scoia'tael out there, which is not a terrible thing. Obviously, Denna was an engine, so better in that sense, and 2 points higher than Scoia'tael, but at least it's an 8-point body. And the dragon doesn't really brick any harmony synergies here, because we were unlikely to have had a chance to get that. Now I think we might want to go Telion in and put Zoltan back to our deck. I believe we can still do that. And, ooh, Philavandrel. Okay, that's an interesting one. Anything we like to get rid of here? Not really. Although, we could move Doedric. I think more likely we just hit him with a Waylay, and that should make it pretty feasible for us to take him out with Great Oak a little bit later. Okay, it's Anna Henrietta, so they're going to steal our leader ability. Oh, and yeah, the bleed, some synergies with the statuses that the Tibor is dishing out. We could get some Veil with Shaping Nature, which is maybe not a terrible idea to do that relatively soon here. Let's go Telion in, though, and we might be able to get rid of this Doedric, depending on what we get out of backup plan. Dolmathana Archer, hold on. We do have a Death Blow there. We do have one here as well. I think we go for the Tree Ants and go, in that case, for Melee Row, because we can't get double Death Blow with Range Row, can we? No. Okay, so let's do this. I mean, we could also go Range Row here and almost take you out, but I think we'll have other ways to make that happen. So let's do that. And then we'll go for the Shaping Nature And I guess we'll go for... I mean, technically the Vitality is the highest value, but we'll do this. Just give you the Veil, make it so it's very unlikely, or basically impossible, for you to take more damage from the Tibor statuses. Alright, they're going to use Ivar. Is this Adrenaline? It's not active, so it's a decent play. But I think now we go for the Great Oak and we just get rid of this Dodric, because it's the closest thing they have to an engine right now. It's helping them set up with better cards. And this row is basically full right now, or is about to be once we play Great Oak. So I think we put you in here if I've done my math correctly, and I have. Oh, and that technically, the Treant did break our Treant Harmony proc, but oh well. Ooh, that's not good. I do not like you. I mean, it's a little late, but with Tibor, you do have some potential to get bigger. And there's a chance we could get something with Isengrim's Council. It could be interesting, but don't know exactly what that's going to give us. Might be worth giving it a shot. Most of our other stuff here is not great. So I think we go for it. And... not fantastic. We no longer have a dwarf on the board, actually. So you do proc Harmony. No bronze specials in our deck, so Simloss, unfortunately, is a brick. And Aquin, no Naiads to infuse. I mean, it's another Symbiosis card, but it's too late for that to be of much use to us. So I think it is basically just Harmony procs here that make you best. Terra Nova, Assimilate, and they have given Spying to some of our cards here. So they'll go with Synthesis. That was the Torres that made that possible. And they only have one card left here. So we have a pretty big lead. That is encouraging. The downside is, as I was saying, we've played all of our big stuff. And with no setup for Glace and nothing to use you on and no real setup for Eldain either, these are all pretty lackluster plays. I mean, unless there's a bronze nature card that I've forgotten about. But no, it's all waylays and those are tactics. And so is backup plan, unfortunately. I mean, technically you're higher base power, so sure, we'll go for you. Not that you really do anything special. So what is their last card? It's Letho. For Quorixis. Oh, and the leader ability that they stole from us. I totally forgot about that. That is good for Assimilate, though. Is it enough? Swordmaster is not going to be a big factor outside of just more Assimilate procs, and it's not enough for them to catch us. Even after the Tibor status, and so we will win with 2 cards to spare. Alright, so going up against monsters here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we have a ton of bricks in our hand right now. Yorvit's Gambit, no good. Sasuke Commander, also no good because we don't have bronzes. So let's dump those 2. Okay, and it's Weavis, and they have Urn of Shadows, so they, theoretically, if they have Death Wish cards, could do a fair bit with them. Unfortunately, we have several more bricks where that came from. Simloss doesn't really work, and Mysteries of Lochfian, we could combine with Denna, I suppose. That may have to be our win condition here, and Ellerin, we also want to keep hanging out in our deck. So, I guess it is this. I guess it is scenario. Okay, Detloff. Some bleed. But now we can just avoid this row, and they didn't really have good setup for him. So now we go Denna. And that'll activate the first chapter. So now we'll get boosts on almost every subsequent card that we play. Now, granted, might not have been a terrible idea to have saved this for round 3, and then we could have also used leader ability as well. So now we're going to get hand buff on a lot of cards here, but not necessarily cards that we want to keep in hand. As we were saying, Ellerin at the very least, we want to put back into our deck, and Simloss we just never want to see again. Okay, Old Spear Tip is a very solid point slam. But now, Blood Moon is already gone. We could go Ithlinne, I guess, on somebody. Isengrim could help a little bit with Francesca, but we don't have enough special cards to benefit from her. So we also kind of need to wait on her as well. Let's go, Ithlin. Let's buff Saskia. And that might be the next card that we play, and then we might leave it at that. Technically, the longer this round goes, the more hand buff we will get on other cards in our hand. Arrakis Queen, there's the Death Wish. Ooh. That's not good. That's very not good. Okay, so remember when I said we might want to get out of this round pretty quickly? I think we want to get out of this round, like, right now. Fortunately, we did generate some carryover. But they will still win round 1. Now the game is just going to taunt us with all the cards we wish we would have had to combine with that scenario, as Quirks. This would have been fantastic. But we should put Ellerin back into our deck as our other scenario. And, I mean, technically, do we have enough elves? We do, that we could make Feigned Death work. We really want to get rid of Simlust in that case. Alright, it's Naglfar. And then Scenario. Now, will they manage to get the Thrive here to support it? We could Scenario ourselves. Ours is a little less tempo, but they played one more card than we did in round 1, so we don't need to catch them just yet. But, I mean, it might be Feigned Death here. Although, normally, Scenarios would be a pretty big deal when you actually have a deck built around them. We don't really have that at the moment. Okay, that's Death Wish. Alright, and they will destroy what was an engine, although an engine that would have been a little tough for us to benefit from. Now, granted, this does encourage us to play more elves, which is a little bit tricky, because we don't really want to play Francesca, because we still don't have enough special cards to make that effective. However, in order to get an elf other than Francesca and Isengrim, we're going to have to play our only other special in our hand, Isengrim's Council. And we are going to miss the deploy ability on Tellianin, but you know, that's actually not a terrible thing. It's the order that probably means most to us here. So now we have a fair number of elves, so we could definitely use Isengrim, and we'll get more from this order ability. Unseen Elder. We'll deal some damage, and they have the Devotion. Now, if we could get rid of him, that'd obviously be ideal. That is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. We could hit them for a bit of damage with Sultan. We don't have the armor on him, so he's not actually an engine. He's a decent points land, though. Let's see what we can do here. We're going to damage you like that, and then hit you a little bit more with the Officer, and we don't really know if the Bomber is going to hit you or not, so I think we go with this. I mean, technically, Farseer is worth the most points by a lot, so if we're just going pure pointage, that's preferable. If we care about destroying you, which I think we do, I think we still do this. So we do that, we're going to get this, which means we can destroy you, which means now Isengrim gives us pretty solid value. And that even gets out Ellerin, which we did do some hand buff on in round 1. Dagon is kind of terrifying. They're getting all their Death Wish cards in this round. So, do they have much support left for that? Because they might not. I mean, we're still doing very well from a pacing standpoint. I think we might want to go Scoia'tael here, because technically it does have resilience, so there is some carryover potential here if we are saving Gezros for round 3, which was something that I was kind of thinking we were going to do, although if they continue pushing, that may quickly change. So let's do this. We'll get ourselves, I assume it's a Cat Witcher we're going to want. I mean, technically we have a decent number of cards here for this Cat Witcher Mentor, but that's probably still not the direction we want to go in. Let's go with the Witcher. And I think we'll prioritize hitting melee row. Kelly. Not good news for us, because we have a lot more units than they do. If only we could move Kelly with Scoia'tael, but I'm afraid we cannot. And we don't really have any great answers outside of that, unless we go Corixis, and then we'd have to go Leader ability to get a relic afterward to actually get the Lock Fiend Convergence, and then we just hope that we happen to get something that can move Kelly after that, although for the most part it's elves that can do that, and we already have an elf on the board, so that's really not going to happen. So I think we're just going to have to point slam here, and Zoltan Warrior actually could help us a bit with that, because I don't think there's really any chance of us having fewer units than our opponent, so we just need to accept that Kelly is going to remove something every turn, so why not give Kelly some weak stuff, basically sacrifice these rowdy dwarfs. More Death Wish, wow. I mean, the tricky thing for them is really that we still have way more points than they do, and the whole premise of what they're doing right now, they're trying to bleed us in round 2. That only works if they have a threat of actually catching us, which in a few turns may no longer be possible for them to do. So we're basically just trying to weather the storm long enough for us to be able to pass and not be concerned about the last 1 or 2 cards that they're thinking about playing. And at this point, we're basically just eyeing things that we might want to save for a later round. And it would be pretty difficult to get value from Francesca's ability at this point, so I think we probably do play her here. She will still put a boost on Isengrim. And she's not a terrible point slam either, but I'm kind of trying to save the relatively difficult tags to combine with Harmony stuff, because we're trying to save that for round 3, I think. Still their leader ability, though, that is worth 9 points. I mean, ours is something that, when combined, at least with Corixis, is pretty valuable. Oh, how many points are they going to get on Imlerith? It's pretty good. Okay, so Gezros's Adrenaline ability is now active. So we definitely could use that. It's a card that, as I said, I was really hoping we could save. I mean, he's gotten a lot of hand buff, and he's obviously quite powerful. But in a short round, maybe we're okay with more tempo-oriented stuff, and he is technically an engine. So I guess that means we could go with this, and nah, it's still not going to get rid of Kelly quickly enough. Maybe when combined with this Cat Witcher, if we get really lucky with the damage, but I kind of doubt it. So I think we play this, and this is going to be the last thing that we expect to do. Or we could go... Actually, no, let's go Ethne. We aren't really going to get much value out of the Symbiosis, I don't think. So that's fine, but once again, we're just flooding our rows with low-value cards that are going to get sacrificed to Kelly, and that way we can save things like the Cat Witcher. Alright, so, again, we've accepted the fact that they will definitely have... Well, with all the rats... I'm actually not sure it was more units, but that was a Dagon that they just got. And that was very valuable. So suddenly, we do not have that huge lead that we were thinking we would have. So at this point, we might need to Gezros, and we could go Gezros probably range row, and then just wipe out all these rats in one turn, and that gives us pretty solid value at that point. Definitely we'll have more units than they do. But let's go for that, I think. And wanted to save him, but since we're going to be looking at a very short round 3, that's probably not nearly as meaningful now. Technically, if I put him one spot over, he would have not got the redundant damage from the Cat Witcher. Okay, rid of Gezros. Still not enough, although the Storm does activate here. So we probably will still need to play this last card, because we have 2 points we're going to get from that Cat Witcher, which is something, which means we will have a lead, but they still have a leader ability, potentially, and obviously that last card. So I think we go... wanted to save Synthesis because so much hand buff and a hard category to get for Harmony. But if we do this now, then maybe we can still save Corixis plus leader ability for round 3, and that might still be decent enough tempo that we're not too concerned about our opponent. So let's do this. That means we have a 17-point lead here. Yeah, so they won't even try playing. So we will win round 2 after an extended bleed from our opponent. Okay, and we're looking for ideally things to combine with Corixis and our leader ability, so Harmony things. And Saskia, we don't have stuff for her to summon, although Dragon is tough to get, but I don't really think that's reason enough to go for it. And now suddenly we have exclusively dwarves, which, I mean, technically does help Zoltan a bit, but, I mean, yeah, I guess Bruver, then Yarpen, then Zoltan technically does give us some dwarf synergies. I don't love them, but they do exist. Is that reason? I mean, I guess we'll stick with it. Otherwise, I mean, I was thinking we were going to try to mix up as many types of cards as possible here, and That very much is not the case anymore. But now, I guess that means we'll go... I think it's still Quorixis first, then its leader ability. So that way we get a little more boostage from playing the dwarves, otherwise we're getting not much value from them. So let's do this. Do we care about row stacking at all? I think we're just mixing up the rows. Okay, so we're just looking for something other than a dwarf here. I guess the vitality is the best because we're not going to have specials for you. So that means range row. Does proc the harmony. We'll get a little more harmony going as well. So they pushed very aggressively in round 2, and that may have been in part because they knew they had a 9-point leader ability, but we, with Quorixis plus Denna, had a little bit more than that, so that may still mean we can out-tempo them. And it's the Dagon that they got back into their hand. They only were on even cards because they managed to pull off that Dagon combo, otherwise we still would have been a card up, and that would have pretty significantly changed things here. Technically, that does mean we might want to try to dodge this row in case they do manage to get the Death Wish on him. So let's put the Vitality on, and I think it has to be Brewer now, otherwise we're not going to get enough armor to do anything with him. So we'll do this. Procs the Harmonies, gives you the armor. Obviously, he's not really going to do much just yet, but put the Vitality on, sure, you. Okay, Lilith's Omen. And that's not a bad card to use it on, nor is Death Wish stuff like Detloff. So there were definitely a lot of directions they could have gone in there. That was pretty well executed, and leader ability well timed there as well. Now I think it's going to be Yarpen, and actually we do have enough damage to destroy that Kashe, which I think we're going to need to do here. Technically, you don't have armor, so you're not going to matter if we play in the same row as Brewer, but well, we do want to still push you next to him so that Zoltan can be our finisher. Okay, She Who Knows, 10-point slam, yes, but obviously the carryover potential doesn't really matter anymore. So now it's Zoltan. Boost those two, and that means we have a 13-point lead here. If they can destroy Dagon, they might be able to catch us, but otherwise, we may have this. Could be close, though. And Tatterwing can destroy Dagon, but we will just barely hold on for the win. So there's a look at a Scoia'tael Harmony deck for the new Our Battle Will Be Legendary seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions we should experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.